You little... Hey, that's funny. And that horrible act of child abuse became one of our most beloved running gags.
You know, it's kind of weird that strangling a child has become one of the most memorable things about The Simpsons. To the point that not long ago, rumors came out that the show was going to stop doing it. And people threw a massive fit. Which again, was only a rumor and not true. The Simpsons did have a funny response to it though. Now I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure the reason the show had Homer strangle Bart in the first place was because The Simpsons was made to counter the typical sitcom family. Sitcoms were filled with wholesome, loving families who would never do such a thing. They would only do bad stuff when the cameras weren't rolling. But The Simpsons said screw all that. Let's have Homer not just hit Bart, but full-on strangle the boy. But you know, it wasn't as common as you might remember. Maybe 3 episodes in a season would have Homer doing it. It only became way more common much later. Like season 15 and 16 had almost as many strangling moments as the first 6 seasons did combined. I'm not really sure why people never had a problem with it before. I can only guess it's because it was never depicted as being too serious. Like you never saw Bart's trauma from it or anything. So people didn't think too much about it. And I only say that because when they did try to bring a more serious look into Homer strangling Bart, people hated it and consider it one of the worst episodes they ever made. Because the episode depicts Homer's trauma from being strangled. And Bart is the villain of this episode? What? What world are we living in? Okay, well let's find out how bad it really is. And see if Love is a Many Strangled Thing is the worst Simpsons ever. But before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to our patrons. If you like our content and want to support us, consider becoming a patron, where you get access to all our videos 1 week early. If not, a like and subscribe goes a long way. Thank you. Now let's get to the episode. It starts with Mr. Burns flying in a hot air balloon, but has to deal with one of the most dangerous hazards in the sky.
Gadzooks, the one hazard this balloon cannot negotiate, a gentle breeze.
He asks for help from his workers, and Homer tries to shoot it down, but he's a terrible shot. But his bad shooting does inadvertently get Burns down, and Mr. Burns rewards Homer with anything his heart desires, which he obviously makes the right choice.
Name your reward. Anything. Just name it.
All your money and all your stuff.
Lower and likelier.
Super Bowl tickets? Playoff tickets? Regular season bobblehead day?
Nothing head day.
So they get to the stadium, which does have some good jokes throughout it. The best being the zoo with all the NFL mascots. During the game, they have a fan cam, with the most accurate sign for fan participation I've ever seen. During which, the old Jewish man dies, and his ghost starts dancing. And nobody starts freaking out. What the hell, people? You just learned ghost freaking exists. Run! They're dancing! And even though we just saw other people not dancing, Bart gets singled out for not doing it, and is called a party pooper, causing Homer to tickle him to try to get him to join in. But he won't. So Homer keeps doing it, angering Bart as he laughs the whole time. Until he pees his pants. And he's obviously embarrassed by it, as the whole stadium starts laughing at him. What's even worse is when Homer is trying to apologize for it, he's trying to start to wave, making it a very insincere apology. It then gets reported on the news. Really? Why aren't you people covering the dancing ghost? This leads to an argument between Marge and Homer, and Marge makes him go to counseling to be a better dad, where he tells the group about his experience being a father.
The other day, Bart, the little Dickens, said I had an elephant butt. So anyway, I'm strangling him.
You know, say what you will about this episode, but that was just funny. However, the therapist teaching the class rightfully freaks out on him, while all the other dads look at him with concern. Then Homer says it was how he was raised, which I never really saw Abe as being a strangler. And I was right. Because Homer used to strangle his dad. So Homer was just an abusive dick his whole life. The therapist then ends the class early, and actually cancels it the next weekend, to directly focus on dealing with Homer, where he gets Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, random cameo, okay. Anyway, Kareem dresses up like Homer and starts strangling him, which he seemingly does for a while, at least every week during the class. So this is a common complaint about the episode, where they say Homer is just getting tortured in it. But like, this is just what he does to Bart over and over again, and people didn't have a problem with that. After it's all over, Homer swears he's never going to strangle Bart again. He then tells Bart he won't get angry at him anymore, and asks Bart to piss him off, which he does. And Homer goes in for the strangle, only to see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which Homer freaks out, leading him to have a stroke. Okay. We then see Bart taking full advantage of Homer not strangling him anymore, where he decides to be a bigger jackass than usual. You know, Homer, you can punish your son without strangling him. You know that, right? This is a thing. We then see Bart basically controlling Homer and forcing him to do things, where we get a line that is actually my dad's favorite line from Bart.
Fill the board, then wash my car.
These are my keys.
What was that?
After this, we see Homer's dream, with moments of abuse from films and television, which some are rather obscure. I mean, I had to look up this basketball one, and if you're interested, it's from a movie from the 70s called The Great Santini. And who in the world remembers Precious? This leads to Marge trying to get therapy for both Homer and Bart to deal with this problem. But the counseling center is wrecked and abandoned, and she finds the therapist living under a bridge, where he says he's out of business because nobody's buying therapy. Which, wow, how old is this episode? Damn near everyone does some sort of therapy nowadays. Anyways, he agrees to help for $23 and baked beans, leading him to take Homer and Bart into the wilderness, where he tries to get them to do a bonding exercise. But this doesn't go too well, because Bart is just a dick who likes to see Homer suffer. Then we get the most infamous scene in this episode, because the therapist decides that after failing a single exercise, he needs to do the most extreme thing he can think of, where Bart has to save Homer from being hanged. You know, I don't think this guy got fired because of a lack of customers, but because he's a freaking psycho. He then has Homer jump, and just so you know, most people who get hanged don't die from strangulation. They die from having their neck snapped from the falling process. This guy could have just killed Homer right now. Luckily, he doesn't, and Bart is supposed to save him. But the show reveals Bart to be a complete psychopath, as he knows his father is on the verge of dying and he doesn't care at all. Seriously? What the hell is wrong with you? Doing all these pranks was one thing, but this is just psychotic.
Bart, I'm trying to get you to feel something for your father.
I feel something for him. Here it comes.
Then it's revealed, the only way for Bart to be a decent human being is for him to be strangled. Because once the therapist strangles him, he then saves Homer's life. You know, up to this point, I didn't think this was that bad of an episode. Sure, it had some bad moments, but it wasn't terrible. But now I see what everyone's problem with it is. The episode ends with Homer and Bart suing the therapist for strangling Bart, and getting his home under the bridge. Which I agree, this guy should have been sued. Not just for what he did to Bart, but for this insane therapy session. And that's the episode. Like I just said, until the end, I didn't think it was that bad. I wouldn't have said it was a good episode, but at least had some funny moments in it. I mean, they tried to make you feel bad for Homer, but that didn't happen, because he was just experiencing what he does to his son. And then they make Bart an unlikable jackass, until they turn him into a complete and utter psychopath. And then they imply Bart needs to be abused, in order for him to be a good person. Which, really? What the hell is wrong with the Simpsons writers? This was just horrible. This episode just made Homer and Bart look bad. And I can understand why people really don't like it. I mean, who are we supposed to cheer for in this episode? It's not Homer. It's definitely not Bart. So who? The crazy therapist? Marge? She was barely in this episode. So yeah, this episode is really bad. But is it the worst Simpsons ever? No. No, it's not. While I will say, the ending did sour what was a mediocre episode, I can't say it's worse than the Israel episode, which was just entirely awful. Heck, I don't even think it was worse than Homer vs. Dignity, or when Maud dies. But I'm still gonna give it an F, because it was just bad. I could never deny that. It's just not the worst episode they ever made. But can I say that about the next episode? And what will that be? Well, it's an episode with a rather overused premise, involving Homer and Marge having relationship problems. But this episode has one thing different from all the others, because Homer actually cheats on Marge. So yeah, tune in next time for that, and thanks for watching.